1 year ago, Americans were shocked when Islamic terrorists launched another attack in America, setting off 2 bombs at the Boston Marathon, killing 3 and injuring more than 250 people. One author says that attack was just the latest in Islamic jihad on American soil, but it's not the last. Take a look.
When the Arab Spring revolutions began in Tunisia and Egypt in 2011, many in the West hailed the uprisings as the beginning of a new era of democracy and pluralism in the Middle East. But that didn't happen. Instead, analysts say the region is less stable, more uncertain, and more violent than before. And the new Arab Spring has ushered in a new and aggressive global resurgence of Islamic jihad. On the anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing, author and Islam expert Robert Spencer releases his newest book, Arab Winter Comes to America, The Truth About the War We're In. Spencer says the same radical Islamic groups that caused the Arab Spring in the Middle East are at work in America right now, exposing Americans to even more threats of jihad. And he warns that America is shockingly unequipped to face this threat.
Well, author and Islamic expert Robert Spencer is here with us. He's written a book called The Arab Winter Comes to America, and it's a pleasure to welcome him back on the 700 Club. Glad to see you again. Thank you.
Very good to be here. Thank you.
You've got something really shocking in this book, is that the Obama administration told the FBI and our Homeland Security people to delete 1,000 pages of information naming the sources of Islamic terror. Could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I used to be a trainer of FBI agents. I would train them about Islam and jihad so that they would understand the motives and goals of our enemy. You can't defeat an enemy you don't understand. But on October 19th, 2011, the 57 Muslim organizations wrote to John Brennan, who was then the Homeland Security Advisor, and now he's the head of the CIA, demanding that all information about Islam and jihad be scrubbed from counter-terror training, and all counter-terror trainers who spoke about Islam, like me, be fired. And what's happened in the time since then is that we got intelligence from Russia that said that Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the Boston bomber, was an Islamic jihadi. And the FBI didn't do anything.
Wait a minute. That came through to the FBI. They had clear information that this Tsarnaev was a jihadi?
Yes, they did. The Russians said he was a, quote, a follower of radical Islam who had tried to join underground groups. Now, a follower of radical Islam is only going to be trying to join jihad terror groups.
But the FBI did nothing?
They made a perfunctory investigation. They decided that he was not a terror threat, and they dropped any surveillance.
So the people died on their watch. They knew that this was going to happen. Did they know it was going to happen during the marathon? Or?
They didn't know it was going to happen during the marathon, but they had every reason to be following the Tsarnaev brothers, and they were not doing so out of this politically correct, willful ignorance that makes them refuse to deal adequately with the jihad threat.
You mentioned the number of groups. The umbrella is called the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR.
They were involved.
What influence do they have?
They have tremendous influence. The FBI actually will no longer work with them because of their ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. But they still have tremendous influence within the Obama administration. They were one of the 57 groups that demanded that all this material that spoke realistically about jihad would be scrubbed.
Do they have people sitting in the councils of the White House and what would be not the Oval Office, but the executive office area?
They do. They have people who are in key positions in the Obama administration. There are people with Muslim Brotherhood ties, like Mohammed Ali Biari, who is on the Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council, and other people with Muslim Brotherhood ties that have great influence in the Obama administration. Arif Ali Khan, who is also in Homeland Security, and others who have been involved with these Muslim Brotherhood groups.
Why would the Obama administration put people like that in sensitive intelligence gathering positions?
Well, you know, political correctness rules the day, and we have to. Obama keeps insisting we're not at war with Islam. He has warmly favored the so-called Arab Spring, really the Arab Winter, Islamic supremacist revolutions, all all around the Arab world, and he wants to show always that he has a good faith toward Islam and so on. And so he put these people in these influential positions.
What about that statement he made at the United Nations a couple of years ago about defaming the prophet? What is defamation? You have something in your book about what defamation is.
He said that the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet of Islam. And in Islamic law, slander is not lying about somebody. It's telling truths about someone that he does not want known. And what they don't want us to know right now, these Islamic groups in the United States like CARE, is the nature and magnitude of the jihad threat, which is exactly what Obama scrubbed from counterterror training.
So a slander is saying truth about somebody that he doesn't want said.
That's right.
Now, how do you get that information? What's the definition? Where'd you get it?
That's from the Reliance of the Traveler, which is a manual of Islamic law that's published by Al-Azhar University in Cairo, which is the foremost institution in the Sunni Muslim world.
Do you think Obama knew what he was saying when he said slander?
I think somebody gave him that phrase, absolutely, and that the people who gave it to him knew what they were doing, if he did.
If somebody tells the truth about Muhammad, tells everything about him, his writings out of the Quran, and he wouldn't like that being published, that's a slander?
That's right. And that's why people like me are charged with slandering the Prophet and slandering Islam, when what we do is tell the truth about what Islam teaches.
Well, I understand they wouldn't even let you into Great Britain.
Yeah, that just shows the power of these Islamic supremacist groups. It was a smear campaign by leftist and Muslim groups saying this guy slanders Islam, says that Islam is violent. That's what the Home Office's letter to me actually said, that you say that Islam has a doctrine of warfare against unbelievers, which is just a fact, and so we can't let you into the country.
You said they have a doctrine of warfare. It's in the Quran.
Yes, of course it is.
I mean, cold letter. What about this deal at Brandeis University when Hershey Alley was denied a degree? You want to comment on that?
It's all part of the same thing, Pat. You know, that there's a concerted effort that I detail in the book to destroy anyone who speaks honestly about the jihad threat and about what Islam teaches about violence against unbelievers. Anybody who does that is targeted, smeared, defamed, with the ultimate intention of marginalizing them completely so that everyone will be afraid to speak about the jihad threat and it can advance unimpeded.
How bad is it? You're talking about it not an Arab Spring, it's an Arab winter. How pervasive is that?
It's very pervasive. I mean, we've had several jihad plots and jihad massacres in the United States over the last few years, and they've all been covered up. I mean, most notably, the Fort Hood jihad massacre that the Obama administration called workplace violence. Are you
serious? Wait a minute. Initially, it was called workplace violence?
It still is, in the official government report on it.
And he's saying, Allah Akbar. I mean, he's shouting out Muslim slogans when he's shooting these people?
Yes, and they said it was workplace violence, and the government report on it never once mentions Islam or jihad. That's the extent of the denial, and that kind of denial only ensures that there will be more attacks like that.
What do you think is going to happen? You said the winter comes to America. There was an Arab Spring. You look across to North Africa, and especially in Egypt. What's going on now?
Well, all it was the Arab Spring was an Islamic supremacist takeover where the Muslim Brotherhood and allied organizations like it moved to put Islamic states in power in all those countries. Now, the big thing that happened that they didn't expect was that the Muslim Brotherhood regime in Egypt was so unpopular that the Egyptian people toppled it from power after a year. And so that's a sign of hope. But the Islamic groups are still advancing all around the globe, and most of all in the United States, where our authorities are asleep at the wheel.
The Brotherhood, it sounds so benign, but it's not benign at all. Talk about it.
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood is a brotherhood among Muslims, but Islam teaches, for example, in the Quran, it says, Muhammad is the apostle of Allah. Those who follow him are merciful to one another, but ruthless to the unbelievers. That's chapter 48, verse 29. And so they might feel themselves a brotherhood, but it's a brotherhood that mandates warfare against and the oppression of non-Muslims.
What's the final prognosis for this nation in the Western world?
If we don't turn this around quickly, then there is going to be civil conflict on a massive scale and the Islamization of large portions of Europe and possibly even America itself.
We've been talking about France. It looks like it's very pervasive, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's very pervasive in France. There are areas right now where you can't even go if you're a non-Muslim unless you are ready to be physically attacked. And these no-go areas are not just in France, but in Sweden, in Belgium, and in even parts of London.
What are they going to do? What can be done?
Well, what we have to do is assert our own laws. And these areas are self-governing enclaves that are essentially enforcing Islamic law in the middle of Western states. And Western authorities have to have the courage to go in there and say, there's going to be one law, not Islamic law, but one law in this land for all people. Instead, though, British authorities, even over the last few years, have been saying, well, we can have Islamic law in Britain for the Muslims, and we'll have a separate legal system for the rest of people. And that's already bearing bitter fruit.
But when you say this, you are castigated.
Yes. That's all part of the same campaign. Everyone who speaks honestly about jihad terror will be defamed, smeared, mocked, ridiculed with the intention of completely destroying and silencing us.
Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, this book's rather important. Robert Spencer, Amazon, anyway? Where do you
It's at, if you go to cbn.com, all the links are there. It's at Amazon, at my website, jihadwatch.org.
Right.
Should be at any self-respecting bookstore as well.
Robert Spencer, ladies and gentlemen, we're just delighted that he's writing this, but what a terrible thing is being done. We cannot allow these jihadis to get the upper hand. We just can't let it happen.